What's up, guys? So today I'm going to talk about the dark manifestation of each zodiac sign. So I'm a little bit sick today, a little bit under the weather, but I'm good mentally. So let's just get into it. So quick little intro, just to be very clear. I'm not calling out your zodiac sign. Everything in astrology has like the high manifestation, the medium, and the low. For example, a Pisces can be a compassionate, amazing, loving, understanding person, or they can be a complete sociopath, right? As we've seen with a lot of the serial killers being Pisces. So, in water signs. So, let's get started. Let's do this. Cosmo Sessions, baby. Let's go. Okay, first we have Pisces. So I'm not going in order here. I'm going to do this in a little bit of a different order than the Aries to Pisces. So keep it a little bit fun. Pisces, low Pisces. So the low manifestation of Pisces is the ultimate victim, right? They are the person who is always living in an imaginary world. And they have these big, amazing plans because they are ruled by Neptune. They have great imaginations, regardless of what if they're like I always say, Pisces. It's like the artist, or it's like the drug addict or the mystic, And I don't want to create that idea of extremes for that sign, for that energy, but a lot of times Pisces feel like they're living in a world that they just don't belong in. Same with Aquarius. More than any other two, I would say, in my experience. So, and you guys know I'm writing down the timestamps, so please don't be mad at me. Little Pisces playing victim. There you go. Yeah, sometimes they just refuse to look at reality, and they just isolate themselves from the world. And also, another one would be escapism. Addiction is huge for Pisces, right? Just like screw it. It's like that ability to just like not confront problems and just if there's a drug available. I'm not saying that addiction is something that is controlled by your zodiac sign. I'm not saying that, guys. But Pisces, whether it's using that imagination to create a fantasy world, which could turn into being like the best author, best movie creator ever, right? Best artist. It's just, how do you escape is the question with Pisces. So I'll leave it there. There's a lot more I could say about Pisces. Next, let's talk about Virgo, the opposite sign. So this one's funny. I would say low vibe Virgo is someone who is always complaining and always critical. They're so perfectionist, and they also sometimes fail to see the beauty, and they lose faith very easily. Low vibe Virgo. They can be very naggy, and they can be very. I always feel like when I'm doing these, and like people, like even though I'm recording this on the 10th of April, and no one's, it's not live, I can just feel people watching this in the future being like, "Yep, that's the person. This person I know. Yep, this is person I know." Blah blah blah. So, yeah, just super critical, and they like, it's basically like when they're critical of themselves. Like, let's say that they grew up in a situation where they were just always screamed at for not being good enough, or like they felt like the only way they could prove their value was by being really good at school, or I don't know, whatever, right? They have these standards, 100 or 0. If they can't get to 100, then they suck, even though they're amazing, right? So they set these impossible to achieve goals, and then also, like, a lot of times they project that perfectionism on other people. So it's like you're hanging out with a low vibe Virgo. Your house might not be perfectly clean, right? Like, maybe there's something laying around. Like, I have, for example, a trash bag right there that I'm gonna take out before I go to the gym. Like, whatever. Maybe like a low vibe Virgo might come in and might be like, "Oh, you have this. Oh, like, this is on your ground." I'm like very clean person, So that's one thing. And I always say, so relationships can be tough, and just over analyzing, like being too much in the head, not enough in the heart, and just like being like like caught up on details that don't matter, right? So it's like, you know, they need to like, you know, I always say there's a million reasons every day that you could worry, that you can, that like the things that you can worry about, things that you can have anxiety about, and you just need to learn to like trust the divine, trust the universe, and it's very hard for the low vibe Virgo to do that. All right. So next, let's do Leo. So low vibe Leo is definitely, you know, we all know what low vibe Leo is. It's that narcissistic kind of me, overly domineering, also controlling because it's a fixed sign. You know, it's just like we get it. Leo, a lot of times karmically, like, you know, I see Leos who haven't received praise in past lives, right? But it's not always the case. And so it's not for everyone, right? Some people, they're meant to be here to receive that praise. I'll make a video on that at some point too, on why, I'll write it down right now, like why you have your sun sign. But yeah, basically it's just that inflated ego, especially like if they had it bruised early on, and just having to kind of push that on everyone, that kind of balance of like giving and taking, you know, speaking and listening. Sometimes the low vibe Leo will be way more on like the, you know, the people who are like, it's not just Leo, it's like, but like it doesn't really happen to me, but like I hear it happening to people. Like, I guess it happens to everyone, but I can't think of a time like where you're just like, you're talking to them and you can tell that they're just waiting for you to be done so they can tell you their thing. Like they could not give a crap. That's like the self-centeredness of low vibe Leo. So yeah, I think also like stubbornness is a point of you know, that of a fixed sign like that. They can have so much pride in themselves and in their achievements and everything about them, that they let that get in the way of their growth and their open-mindedness sometimes. And they can also be overly dramatic, you know, making a big scene out of nothing. You know, but it's a lot of times it's because they need that attention. So it really with Leo, it depends a lot. It's, you know, I'm a Leo rising, I'm a Leo South Node. And I just made a video a few days ago about the importance of your South Node, and I might make another one. Not sorry, but like, just so you know, like I'm someone, I improvise everything. So I come up with ideas on the way when I'm doing stuff like this, and that's like how I have to do it. Like I can't just sit and think of ideas. I have to be like on the move. So I just sometimes will have to stop. I'm sorry, to write down an idea for a video that will be a whole new great video, an organic creative video. But yeah, so yeah, just they can also be I don't know, just rush into things, overly impulsive. That's just like any fire sign, you know, overly impulsive. And when you add that stubbornness, right? Like the fact that it's a fire sign, so it can, that when you add that stubbornness because it's a fixed sign, right? And then you add that that fire energy, that's a bad recipe sometimes, because you have someone that can be very spontaneous, jump into things, and then when they're into things that maybe they didn't think out so well, they're like, I'm stubborn. You know, they're stubborn about it. So it's like, learn to be wrong when you're wrong, guys. Okay, learn to be wrong when you're wrong. All right, what's up with? So I guess we're going, Aquarius right now. Aquarius, where do I start with you guys? I guess just what everyone knows is that Aquarius can be very, very aloof, very disattached. And sorry, I look away from the camera. I do this all the time when I'm thinking. This is just the way it is, guys. It's the way it is. You know, they're very rational. So it's good in a sense for Aquarius, because they can be this this kind of person like within chaos, like they know how to manage things. But you know, when it comes to relationships, they can be very, very disattached, which you know, it is what it is, right? It's good and bad. They're very good at giving freedom, but then it's like, what's the extreme of freedom? And I can't be talking here because I have a lot of Aquarius, but Yeah, it's like being in touch with their emotions is tough a lot of times for Aquarius. Which is the funny thing that many people know is that they can be the most humanitarian people when it comes to animals' rights, when it comes to causes they believe in, injustices in the world. Like Aquarius are amazing, right? So on that global humanitarian level, but then when it comes to their one-on-one relationships, sometimes they just lack that emotional availability, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if I really I guess I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just how you are, and you like space, and you need space to do things. It's just like extremes, right? Like I've seen Aquarius just the whole like out of mind, out of sight. When it comes to ghosting, yeah, I guess everyone says Pisces males, right? But I would say Aquarius is like that too. Like they can just dip, and then it's almost like they don't feel the emotional, like not all of them, right? But a lot that I've come across, it's like they don't always feel the emotional kind of consequences of just like they could have like a magical relationship and just bounce, and then the other person's broken, and then they're just like, all right, I move on. Yeah. Also, I would say like they can be sometimes the rebel, like just for the sake of being the rebel. Not necessarily like it's not like you have to be doing something like they'll sometimes want to do the other thing that's unpopular just to be doing the other thing that's unpopular, right? So like you say one thing, they want the opposite, that kind of energy. Without giving like an actual honest look at, okay, why am I choosing this? So let me see what's next. Okay, next we're going Aries. So obviously Aries is a fire sign. It can be very impulsive. They can be bullies. They can be childish. They can throw their, they can just do things without thinking. I love Aries. But yeah, I mean, it's a sign that they can just do things in the moment. They do them. They don't think that much into them, and then they regret them later. But then they also might not notice how potentially dominant they can be, and not really necessarily know how much they're taking, kind of like Leo compared to like giving, right? Or they might not even be conscious of how they're coming off in the situation, right? Like as it relates to how dominant they're being, and not taking the other person's point of view into consideration, or being able to see the other person's point of view. So yeah, it can be very impatient. It's like childish energy. It's the first sign. So it's like just the low energy of Aries is just like that person that has to be first, very self-centered, very impatient. They can take reckless, unnecessary risks. Yeah, a lot of things like that, I would say, with Aries. And they just need to really learn to be more diplomatic and kind of take things slow. Kind of like Libra, the next one we'll talk about. Now, Libra has its own set of problems, right? With Libra, we have someone who is definitely usually lacking boundaries, and I forgot to say that in the Pisces part, but whatever. Not always, but Libra, it's a balance. So we know it well with Libra that they don't like to disappoint. And what can happen is that it's a very relationship-oriented sign, which is great. They understand, there's lots of great things I could say about Libra. But yeah, it's that people-pleasing aspect, right? So they might put themselves down. It's the scales, right? So they might put themselves, like, I'm holding my mic, but it's the scales. So they might put themselves down just in order. I didn't realize this was in the way the whole time. They might put themselves down just to restore the balance in an environment. So let's say they're in a relationship with a very toxic person, but they don't want to upset that energy. They don't want to upset that. So they keep themselves down and allow that person, they don't create that boundary they need to create around that person. So And a lot of that leads itself to that indecisiveness, right? And that's the seventh house nature is relying too much, on other, right? So that stagnancy that can come from that can create someone who relies on other people to make all the big decisions. So they could go for partners that are overly, very, very dominant themselves. And it can create lots of codependency where they're not willing to leave relationships that they should clearly, objectively leave. And yeah, they could also be very avoidant when it comes to conflict, right? Like I said, they're natural diplomats, so they like peace. But sometimes, they can, because of that avoidance, they can be very, very gossipy and speak behind people's backs. That's why people sometimes call low vibe Libra people fake, because they'll be one way to their face, and a lot of that comes from that fear of that confrontation. So Libra, yeah, always go back to my first video on what you need to learn from your opposite sign. My first Cosmo Sessions video. That's the Bible. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but that video has so many answers in it. So yeah, it can show up as like being passive aggressive, and you see that with Libra, with a lot of signs actually. It's like when they're not good at being Martian, like Aries is, right? Libra is not a Martian sign, it's a Venusian sign. So when they have to be Martian, when they have to have action, they can just be bad at it. I don't know. That's just how it is. Okay, so next, let's see here. We have Cancer. So Cancer. So low vibe Cancer is the whole energy of Cancer, right? Cancer is the crab. So once the crab has been hurt, they crawl back into their shell, and they have trouble trusting again. Trouble being vulnerable again. I've seen it so many times where Cancers, they get into a relationship early in life, and they get hurt. Maybe they get cheated on. Maybe just something kind of bad happens, whatever it is, and they get into relationships later on, and it's just, it's just looking for red flags, and it's really that self-sabotage energy of like, if I find a reason to, and this goes for a lot of people, right? If I find a reason to leave you first, then you can't bring me the pain of you leaving me. I've seen that play out unconsciously a lot. So yeah, locking themselves in that shell and having that trouble trusting, being vulnerable, even though it's a very emotional water sign, right? So I would say this with all the water signs, that the low vibe of Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer is not being in touch with their emotions at all. Really, there's a lot I should have said in the Pisces part, but that's definitely one of them. It's that even though you consider these signs, especially for men, right? Even though these signs are considered very emotional, it's not always like that. Let's see what else. Yeah, I would say also just being like too risk adverse, being too wanting to stay too close to home, and not taking enough risks. As I said, playing things too safe. And also like the low vibe is using this like very high emotional intelligence to kind of play victim or manipulate, to get their way. For example, like creating emotional problems to gain control of a situation. It is, a very powerful sign. Like you see a lot of the richest people are Cancers, right? Cancer suns. So they can also, really like control too, and acquiring things and not letting go. And also, last thing I would say about Cancer is just that it's that obsession and that attachment to the past. They can be so it can be so hard to move on from the past, and they can be very, very stuck in the past. So it can really impact their ability to truly move forward. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, next we have Cap. So with Capricorn, I would say, it can be very closed off emotionally. It can be very materialistic, and just workaholics where maybe they, sometimes put all their value into their work, and they determine their value by how good or how, bad they're doing at their work. And yeah, it's that whole covering something up, right? And then on an emotional level, especially Cap moons, there can be a lot of stuck emotional energy where it's like a rock because it's ruled by Saturn. So it's like they have to like be able to like to lean into that water energy and to let it go. And they can also be very pessimistic, very, very, you could call it realistic, but realistic, there's what's the divide between realism and pessimism, right? It's pretty thin. So, they can look at a situation, and sometimes not all of them, but they can see it from that negative light, right? Which can help them in business a lot, because you do need realism in business. You do need to kind of, and I think Scorpio can speak to this too. You do need to understand that in that type of world, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you need to be realistic, and being a little bit cynical can actually save you a lot of BS, right? But still, when this moves on to their like relationship life, their home life, all that kind of stuff, it can be a little bit difficult, and they can have this just very heavy energy, especially when they're depressed or when they're, it can sometimes just be very hard for them to find joy, little joys in life that might be easier for other energies, and that can bring that melancholic negative attitude. So also I think Cap can be way too, they can care way too much about how they're seen in the eyes of others. I've noticed that a lot. So just they like being vulnerable and whatnot is difficult because they don't want to admit weakness to people, because they're supposed to be the ones that are seen as strong. They have to grow up very, very quickly often. So they're resilient. They have all these strengths, but it's okay to admit when you fail. Okay. Taurus. So Taurus, the low side of Taurus is well documented. It's stubborn as heck, unwilling to change and take risks, right? So if you look at the opposite sign of Taurus, Scorpio, which is the healing point of Taurus, you understand that Taurus need to come. People who have lots of Taurus, it's about, I always give it this metaphor. It's like if you have 100 bandwidth points in your life, right? You have 100 things in your life. Maybe like 30 is your partner, 20 is your work, whatever. 15 is your friends. Just you fill them up. You have this passion, that passion. You need to have some open space, or whenever new things come, you're going to have no room for them. So also Taurus is very, very happy, and that's great. That's an amazing thing about Taurus is that they can be very present. But when it comes to changing their mind or being open-minded about different subjects, or just about different ideas, about different things they can do, it can be so difficult for them and almost impossible to change their mind once they made it, as you know, with Taurus, which is very, that's very, if you've ever read my book, Pisces Live 9 Lives, it's on Amazon. I make like $2 or $3 a copy. You'd see that one of the most important chapters is the importance of intellectual open-mindedness. And so just being able to be open-minded and being willing to admit that you're wrong, to me, is a measure of not only intelligence but wisdom, because you're not placing so much of your ego you're getting closer to the truth as opposed to defending to attaching your ego to something you believe in. It's kind of crazy, right? So I would say also being like overly indulgent in the physical, like almost hedonistic, right? It rules the senses. So whether it's something sexual, eating, just anything with that's sensory, right? They could be really into that, or too into that. It could be alcohol, sex, money, shopping, anything like that, right? That kind of hits that. And also they can be very possessive of other people. So, and that's just a projection of their internal need for security and stability. and that distrust for change. So if they distrust change so much, then then they're gonna not like the idea of someone. So it's like they have to like just learn to lean into the unknown, right? Or else they'll just be stuck in the same place their whole lives and never know what was possible. Okay, speaking of changing, let's talk about Scorpio. So Scorpio is about the low vibe of Scorpio is very well documented. I mean, it's wow. I mean, where do we start, right? Scorpio, it's the biggest difference of any zodiac sign between the low and the medium and the high, or let's just say the low and the high, right? And I would break it down to this. How have you evolved? If you have lots of Scorpio placements, have you let go? Because it's ruled by Pluto, which is about power. And there's two types of power. There's someone who understands that power comes from within. It comes from, that internal place of understanding that, that the power is within you, the power to change your life, the power to transform, the power to go through that death, rebirth, transformation, even when things seem impossible. You can never kill a Scorpio, they say. The other type is the type that I think P. Diddy right now in the news is a good example. He's a Scorpio. The power tripping type, right? The type that tries to control people so much through, psychological warfare, essentially, right? And they can be literally psycho. I mean, anyone can, but when you add that emotional, intuitive intelligence of Scorpio or of a water sign with a Pluto/Mars energy of like actually, being assertive or being able to be assertive, being a powerful energy, it can be scary. So yeah, they can be very power hungry. They can become very obsessed with other people, and it's kind of like Taurus, where it can be that controlling, that psychological controlling, manipulating, power struggles, gaslighting, etc. And also, they are the sign that can hold on to resentments of things that happened 30 years ago, that they just don't let go, and that can turn into revenge, which is not good. They can also be very, very jealous people, right? They can also be very, very jealous and just have lots of trust issues, especially in relationships. So it's about learning to control their their emotions, and I'll leave it at that. So next is Gemini. So Gemini, interesting one, right? Is I would say that definitely it's that two-facedness. I would say it's that the low vibe Gemini is just that running around, saying one thing to one person and the other thing to the other person. Just that and I see I see a lot of high Geminis these days, but just not being able, people will tell me in comments like on my Instagram, which is at Jesse Innocent Astro. You should check it out. They'll tell me that, I'll say Scorpio, usually Scorpio, low vibe Scorpio, they'll say is the worst, but then they'll be like, Gemini is right there. And I think it's because Gemini are so smart. A lot of them, not all of them, but they can sort of use that mercurial mind, whether it's gossiping, and just caring about things that just don't matter. Like really, it's the opposite sign of Sagittarius. It's that they can care too much about trivial things. So yeah, I would say the gossiping aspect and just being unreliable, hard to trust. It's like, yeah, the two-faced energy, liars, right? They can be liars, big time liars. And because they can be, very disloyal too, because they can be so on the run and so curious for what else is out there that commitment is very difficult for them, right? And Yeah, I would say just that ability. It's immutable signs that just can swing back and forth, and just like it's just it can be very, very, very draining to someone with them, and that yeah, that they can be quite indecisive. It's the two twins, right? The two sides to the personality, and yeah, I would say just like the constant flip flopping when they're in relationships is really tough, and just being unreliable in general, right? That's how I would view Gemini. Low vibe. Let me think if I can think of anything else. We only got one left, so let me think. I guess, yeah, just the lying, just the. Yeah, just I guess the inability to connect to the heart sometimes, and just being too mental, too in the mental, and disconnected from the heart and from the emotions can be a big thing for Gemini. So yeah, get better at that. Get better at that. Okay, let's finish it off with Sagittarius. So basically, the low vibe of Sag, and I'm a Sag moon, as I'll always say, is when they try. Okay, first of all, they can be overly blunt, right? Sag is about wisdom. It's about learning. It's about acquiring wisdom that, gives you that ultimate truth, is what I would call it, right? So when you have a lot of Sagittarius, you might have spent a lot of time, a lot of your energy trying to find the truth, right? The truth. And you can get very frustrated when you're around other people. Let's say, example, you find astrology and you're like, wow, this is incredible, right? Unbelievable how you can combine this with psychology and just understand people and why they are the way they are, and all the stuff, right? And then you try to show it to your sibling, who usually is open-minded to stuff, and they just are like, no, I don't like this stuff. This is all BS. Sometimes Sagittarius will just force their truth on other people, and they need to understand that everyone comes to their truth at their own time. It's more about planting seeds. Also, it's a fire sign, so low vibe Sag can be, yeah, like I said, blunt, spontaneous. Jupiter, overly expansive, taking too many big risks, saying too many big statements, promising too much. And yeah, just that it can be a little bit, just like thinking their way is the only way type thing, right? And sometimes they're not so considerate of, what comes out of the things that they say to other people, the effect that they have. And, also commitment issues, just like any of the other mutables besides Virgo. They value freedom so much that it's just like they can have issues with commitment, and that can be tough. The idea of being tied down can be very scary to the Sag placements, and so they might make, because they're Jupiter, they might make promises and then not be able to keep them. It's tough, right? So I would say also just like that kind of like Gemini, that restless back and forth energy is definitely, because it is a fire sign, right? So there is always that risk of, like Aries, that spontaneity and impulsivity, leading to doing things that they later regret. And, it definitely is an energy that needs trial and error. So it's okay. They're meant to be adventurous. They're meant to seek out, they're meant to seek out things that are a little bit different than the norm. But yeah, just taking it into consideration that everyone has their own truth, and everyone comes to that truth at a different time. All right, that is all. Thank you, guys. So let me know in the comments what you think. What has been your experience with the low vibe of any of these signs? Your own, someone you've come in contact with,
someone you were in a relationship with, someone is in your family. I want to know in the comments. What would you add? What would you take away from what I said? You know, what you, if there's anything you disagree with. And please, yeah, continue to help me, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, it is at Jesse Innocent Astro. It should show up or be edited into this video. And yeah, just let me know anything. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.